We are back. Championship rings. Brandon Lewis from Brainsworth. Josh Ungar, the host of the Ungar to the Max YouTube channel. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it's going to be a great night here on Championship Rings, NCAA tournament, NBA action, WrestleMania 40, NFL news. Josh, as always, we got to let the people know that we are on YouTube at Championship Rings 216, Twitter at Rings Champion, Instagram at Rings Champion, and Facebook at Rings Champion 216. Tonight should be a hell of a show.
I would agree with you on that. I'll tell you this. I was really sure that Justin Fields was going to be an Atlanta Falcon. Like, you and I were discussing this, and then from nowhere, we get this news. That he's going from the Windy City to the Steel City.
So you had texted me this, I believe it was the day before, I think it was on Friday. You said, hey, Brandon, I think Justin Fields going to end up being a Steeler. And I texted you back almost immediately, and I said, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, the Steelers investing in offense, it doesn't feel very Steeler-esque to me. I said I'd be very surprised, and then boom, like 24 hours later, Justin Fields becomes a member of the Steeler organization. I'll say this. I'm going to take this actually from a Bears perspective first. I have talked about for months as to why in the hell Chicago would be willing to just give up on Justin Fields before the draft. We know they're going to take Caleb Williams number 1 overall. That's a given to me. If I was Chicago, Josh, I would have waited. And I would have waited until about July, August, September, because we do know historically there will be one franchise quarterback this year. We saw it last year with Aaron Rodgers and Joe Burrow. We know one of these teams, their quarterback is going to go down, whether it's in training camp, preseason, or the beginning of the regular season. At that point, Justin Fields is valuable. He would be worth, a third-round pick, a second-round pick at that point. So just for a pure value perspective, if I was Pittsburgh, if I was Chicago, I would have held on to the young quarterback. But for Pittsburgh, it's tremendous value, and I think more teams should have went out and obviously up their offer.
Yeah, but first of all, I completely disagree on your take about the Bears waiting on this because they knew they were going to draft Caleb Williams. So why put yourself in a situation where you have 2 young quarterbacks on the roster like that? One that knows he's going to get traded and one that knows he's pushed the other one out. That's just not a good mix. I don't care what you say about, they're big guys, they're athletes, they push their feelings aside. I don't care. I'm not gonna just allow you to say something like that.
So I'm gonna get less value because I don't want to hurt a guy's feelings.
See, there you go again, trying to make that take.
No, because it's all about value. The NFL is a business. We have both agreed on this multiple times. Why do players, like Brandon Ayuk this week, went on Twitter and basically told Mike Tomlin to go trade for him? Because as much as San Francisco wants to pay Ayuk, they really can't because of all the money they know they're going to have to pay Brock Purdy. Dallas is in the same situation now, not able to sign a lot of free agents, as we talked about, because Dak, Micah, CD are down the pipeline. Because the NFL in reality, Josh, is all about business and money.
Yes, but again, the Bears don't want to put themselves in that situation.
That's why they've been a loser franchise for 75 years.
Yeah, I know, because they keep missing on the quarterback. For some reason, they thought Mitch Trubisky was the answer. Flop. They thought Justin Fields was the answer. He never got a fair chance.
Justin Fields is a flop. Now, they just traded him away, so they're acknowledging to you he was a flop for their organization.
He never got a fair chance in Chicago, and you know it.
This year was an absolute fair chance. I don't want to hear about this roster was complete garbage because they had DJ Moore, great pass catcher. Cole Kmet, great pass catcher. Khalil Herbert, very good cerebral running back. Their offensive line was ranked 13th by Pro Football Focus, above average. It's not as terrible as what people say. And that defense was pretty good, especially when they traded for Montez Sweat in the second half of the year. Justin Fields was an okay quarterback, but he was never your franchise-saving quarterback.
Did you not see how Justin Fields came on towards the end of the season?
No, I did, because he came out at the end of the season 2 years ago, and he was supposed to take a big leap, and he never did. His numbers were better 2 years ago, and like I said, at the end of the year, he had 2 games. One of them was against Jared Goff and the Lions. The other one was the last game of the year. That was against Jordan Love and the Packers in Lambeau Field in the cold. And it didn't even look close as to who the better quarterback was.
In that case, yeah. But still, if you look at the overall end of the season, he came on and showed that he can be a good quarterback.
He gave you flashes of he can be a serviceable quarterback in the NFL. He never gave you I'm the guy that's going to take the Bears over the top. Now, in saying that, Caleb Williams, I believe, is walking into a lot better situation because of the fact they just got Keenan Allen for a 4th-round pick, DeAndre Swift, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, as I mentioned. The Bears are set up to win more now than what they were 3 years ago. That I'll give you.
Yes, and in that sense, they're screwing over Justin Fields because now they're going on and making all these moves because they know they're bringing in Caleb Williams. Why couldn't you have tried to make these same types of moves when you had Justin Fields? Why? I don't get it.
I mean, circumstances and money create different things. And Chicago, they did go out, they did get him a weapon in DJ Moore. And now Keenan Allen became available, and they essentially decided to make the move.
I think this is a total screw job towards Justin Fields. But let's look at it from the Steelers' perspective. Because now he's coming into the AFC North. And I'll tell you this. By the end of the season, I think he's going to be the Steelers' starting quarterback. I don't think Russell...
No. I completely disagree with you. I am here to say... right here and right now, if Russell Wilson is healthy, again, this depends on him getting hurt, but if he's healthy, Russell Wilson will be the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers for this entire season. And the reason he will be is because that draft pick that the Steelers will have to give up to Chicago is a conditional 6th-round pick, which basically says that if Justin Fields plays 51% of the snaps or more, that pick becomes a 4th-round pick. If you are Chicago, if you're Pittsburgh, you don't want to give up a 4th-round pick to Chicago if you don't have to. You would rather give up a 6th-round pick, which is why, if he plays well, Russell Wilson is going to be the starter because the Steelers would rather give up the rest of the draft pick and groom Justin Fields. Next year may be a different story, but for this year, this is Russell Wilson's team. He is the starter out of the gate. Justin Fields the backup. I think Pittsburgh's made that very clear.
I think by week 7, you will see Justin Fields on the field as the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
And my response to that is why?
Because Russell Wilson's bad play in Denver will carry over to Pittsburgh, and Mike Tomlin will say, okay, I've seen enough. Let's put Justin Fields in.
Hey, did Russell Wilson play bad last year? I mean, he only had 26 touchdowns and 8 picks, and they went on a 5-game winning streak. That's what I was told by you, by the way.
Okay, but when you look at the overall season, let's see.
Oh, guess what? He has more wins than Justin Fields.
Okay. What? Dude, he's an established veteran. I get it. Dude's probably going to the Hall of Fame.
Oh, but the Bears did Justin Fields on bad, but Denver, they did Russell Wilson right by benching him. Pretty much what you're telling me, because Russell Wilson had a better year this year than Justin Fields.
Did you not see all the issues Denver had?
Did you not see all the issues Chicago had?
I think
and
Denver
had more games. By the way, with Jared Stidham and less talent.
I think Denver had more issues than Chicago.
And they won more games. By the way, in a tougher division.
Was that the AFC West was not tougher than the NFC North?
Are you kidding me? Kansas City. Now the Chargers were a mess. Now Denver got a little break as they got into the back half of the year. But Green Bay came on late in the year. Minnesota watched their quarterback. They had Josh Dobbs and won a couple games here and there, which by the way, if my memory serves me right, the Bears won a game like 13-10 on Monday Night Football when Fields did not play great, and it was a horrible game on that Monday night. Russell Wilson also beat them this year. Denver got their first win against Chicago head-to-head. So, in my opinion, Russell Wilson right now, and it's not an indictment on Justin Fields because I think Fields can be a better quarterback. But if you're asking me right now who I take between Fields and Wilson to start just this year, I think it's Wilson because I get him for cheap. Fields can sort of learn the playbook behind Arthur Smith and just get some time to sit and watch the veteran do his thing. And there's no way Russell Wilson, who has never been mistake-prone in his career, is going to play bad in Pittsburgh because he has a good offensive line, he has good weapons, and regardless when we think of Arthur Smith, he's a pretty good OC.
Is he, though?
I don't know. He resurrected Ryan Tannehill's career.
But did he utilize Bijan Robinson? Did he utilize Drake London? Did he utilize Kyle Pitts?
Well, yeah, but they won 7 games with Desmond Ridder. I mean, he didn't utilize him properly as a head coach / play caller, as we talked about. But as an OC, he was a very competent offensive coordinator.
And yet, what did that get Tennessee? A bounce out.
Wait a minute. That was the argument I was making. You told me Tennessee was the number 1 seed 2 years ago. So now you just went back on your own take.
Oh boy, things change and evolve, dude.
I know. Josh Ungar's got to change his take because he listened to me and he knew I was right. So he just repeated what I said 2 weeks ago.
Oh, give me a break. But think about this. Think about what Justin Fields is now walking into. He's got to face the Ravens twice a season. Granted, Pittsburgh stole Patrick Queen from the Ravens, so that'll be interesting. But still, you know Baltimore's always going to have a really good defense. He's got to face Myles Garrett twice a season, and we'll see what Cincinnati does defensively. So it's not an easy situation he's walking into.
We got to move on. We got to talk about the man, the myth, the legend, who me and you have argued about a ton on this show. Aaron, who I have often called, specifically against my Philadelphia Eagles, overrated Donald, has announced his retirement from the National Football League. Aaron Donald in 6 career games against my Eagles has not had 1 sack. He had 5 career hits. I never saw him. He got triple teamed against every other team. My team took care of him. So from my perspective, he's obviously a great player, but I never saw the impact of Aaron Donald besides 2 plays. They were both in the Super Bowl against Cincinnati. He won them that Super Bowl, and I'm never taking that away from the guy. I think he's a great defensive lineman. But again, when it comes to defensive lineman, for me and my money, it's all about how do you do productivity year after year after year. In a big moment, do you show up?
Okay, let's go through his accolades, all right? Over the course of his career, Rookie of the Year, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, 10 Pro Bowl selections, 8 first-team All-Pro selections, 111 sacks. And to top that all off, he won a Super Bowl with the Rams in 2021, which that should have been the St. Louis Rams, not the LA Rams. Screw you, Stan Kroenke. Screw you. But that's a different subject for another day. Aaron Donald is an absolute lock for the Hall of Fame. He is one of the greatest defensive linemen of all time.
So why do you think Aaron Donald's a Hall of Famer? I'm not going to deny that. He's absolutely a Hall of Famer. What I'm saying is, I don't think he's the greatest defensive lineman to ever play the game.
I didn't say that.
I don't even think he's in the top 5. I look at guys like Reggie White and Lawrence Taylor. Those two specifically were the two best defensive linemen I've ever seen, not even close.
You know Aaron Donald was constantly compared to Lawrence Taylor, right?
Yeah, but guess what? In the biggest moments, Lawrence Taylor was unblockable. You could put three guys on him, and you couldn't block Lawrence Taylor. Why don't you go ask the greatest defensive coach ever, Bill Belichick, about Lawrence Taylor? Listen to what he has to say about the greatest LT that's ever played in the National Football League, and that's no disrespect to LaDainian Tomlinson, the great running back for years with the Chargers and the Jets.
Yeah, don't be disrespecting my all-time favorite player, LaDainian Tomlinson.
I can't believe that's your all-time favorite. Why do people love running backs? Somebody explain this affiliation with running backs, the most replaceable position in football. Oh, they can shoot. Whoop-de-doo. You know who wins games? Quarterbacks and pass rushers.
Get back to the subject.
Well, the subject is, every time I watch Aaron Donald, again, against my team, against Dallas, big playoff games, never showed up. Besides the one game against Cincinnati in the Super Bowl. By the way, I mentioned this to you. Where was he this year in the playoff game against the Lions? Non-existent. I didn't see him. He made one play in the second quarter. That was it.
Okay, I'll give Detroit credit. They came up with a game plan to neutralize him.
Here's the problem. When you're that great of a pass rusher, it shouldn't matter what the opposition does. Your job is to constantly create pressure, or at least force so much pressure that other guys have free lanes, which Aaron Donald, in my opinion, did not do enough of to warrant a top 5 best defensive player of all time moniker.
When teams had to prepare for the Rams, you know they circled Aaron Donald.
Yeah, they circled him and they stopped him. That's my point. The good offensive lines and the good team stopped him.
Why do you think that about? How do you think they did that? It's because they circled him with a red pen and said, "We need to stop him." He's
and they did. My point is, the great pass rushers, it didn't matter. You could put 5 offensive linemen on him and they still broke through.
How did Lawrence Taylor, DeMarcus Ware, Reggie White, some of these other great defensive players get to be like that? It's because they developed their games, coaches put the red circles around them, and they still managed to break through.
That's my point. Okay. When did Aaron Donald do it? Because again, what? I watched 6 games against the best offensive line in football. Never laid a hand on my quarterback. Never. I was never afraid of Aaron Donald when I played against him. Never.
Dude, you must have a vendetta against
I know. I watch what I see. By the way, I say the same thing about Myles Garrett. When does Myles Garrett ever show up? I'm more scared of T.J. Watt than I am of Aaron Donald. I know T.J. Watt's a game wrecker.
I want you to think about something. Just because you don't get to the quarterback and make a sack doesn't mean you didn't have an impact.
I'm not saying sacks. I'm saying QB hits, pressures, all of it. Do you hit the quarterback?
Just because you don't hit the quarterback doesn't mean you didn't have an impact on the play.
No, that's what it means. Because
I'm cutting you off right now.
Go ahead, cut me off, because I'm winning the argument.
No, you're not. You are losing this. You are losing, my friend. You are losing badly. Here's the thing, and this is why I view Myles Garrett as a great defensive player. Think about
it. Because he gets 8 sacks against bad left tackles and then doesn't show up for 7 out of the last 8 games?
Nope, I'm cutting you off, my friend. I am cutting you off.
So,
nope, I'm cutting you off right now.
Go ahead and finish.
When the Browns play against whoever, let's say the Cincinnati Bengals, the Bengals have to slide their offensive line to Myles Garrett's side. That opens the lane for other defensive tackles to go get the quarterback.
It does, but guess what? 95 still has to do his job. By the way, he never plays a run and down in his life.
It's the same thing with the Rams. have
still has to do his job and create the pressure to force other guys to get better pressure.
Opposing teams knew what kind of impact Aaron Donald made, so that's why he constantly got the double teams.
I've
That's
never
why
denied he's not a great player. I just said he's a Hall of Famer. I just said I think he's a little bit overrated that people are calling him a top 3 defensive player of all time. Because I just
and that's
never
where
saw
you're wrong.
I never saw it in the big games. Miles
Just
Garrett's
because
going to go down as a top 5 defensive end of all time. I don't see it in the big games.
again, that's where you're missing the point, though. Just
But
because you don't.
I've watched pass
lay
rushers constantly get to the quarterback no matter who's blocking them.
Just because you don't lay a hand on the quarterback doesn't mean you didn't have an impact on the play.
What's your job then? To stand there?
No. Okay, if Aaron Donald gets the double team, somebody else on the Rams defensive line is going to have single coverage
Yes,
against
but if
an
Aaron
offensive
Donald is
lineman.
that guy, he can break that double team and still get pressure.
But the guy who has single coverage gets the benefit of that because he gets an easier matchup.
He does, but they're not producing. Which I'm not
How do
putting
you
that on
know?
Donald, but I'm saying I'm not putting that on Donald, but I'm saying if he's that guy, you got to get more pressure, bud.
God, you are frustrating to work with sometimes.
So are you. We're moving on. All right, take us through this Chiefs story when it comes to Kansas City, please.
All right, so I'm reading this article from WFIN, and the title is Chiefs President Says Leaving Kansas City is an Option Amid Stadium Tax Vote. So it's the residents of Kansas City, specifically Jackson County. They're going to be voting on whether to repeal a current sales tax that could heavily influence the future of both the Kansas City Chiefs and the Kansas City Royals in the city of Kansas City. So, as we know, the Chiefs are in the midst of a dynasty, winning their 3rd Super Bowl in the last 5 years. So this vote is set to take place on April 2nd. And if residents vote to keep the current tax or bring in a new one that would bring that both the Chiefs and Royals will use for stadium purposes. So it says the Chiefs are aiming to overhaul Arrowhead Stadium with renovations that cost $800 million, while the Royals have announced plans to move out of Kauffman Stadium and into the downtown area of the city by the 2031 season, when the current tax deal expires, as their current lease ends in 2030. If the voters vote to repeal the current tax and replace it with the new proposal, which will last 40 years, the Chiefs and Royals have agreed to sign leases that will keep them in the city throughout the duration of the new tax law. So, there's a lot riding on this vote on April 2nd.
Well,
possibly the future. Huh?
What do you think of it?
Honestly, I think this is more of just a scare tactic, which the opposition that's what the opposition is calling it, is a fear-based campaign. Donovan told KSHB that the Chiefs' goal is to stay in Kansas City, but that's admittedly no guarantee. I mean, I don't see why the Chiefs would leave Kansas City, because they've created a dynasty. The Royals, they were in the World Series 10 years ago, where they lost to the Giants in 7 games. I loved that World Series. And then the next season, they come back and beat the Mets to win the World Series. And they just locked up their great prospect, Bobby Witt Jr., to a massive contract extension. So Kansas City is trying to build something, and from what I've seen, the fans in Kansas City love their team. When it's a Chiefs home game, the entire stadium is decked out in red. They broke the world record for loudest outdoor stadium, things like that. Um, so I think this will pass, and the Chiefs and Royals will both get what they want. But it could be a thing that really needs to be worth paying attention to.
Just FYI, Josh, you're I don't know if it's your bandwidth or your audio, but you're occasionally cutting out. So I don't know if it's your camera or if it's the StreamYard. I'm not sure. But it's an occasional wag that I'm seeing on my end.
Gotcha.
But with that being said, I agree with you. Yeah, I don't think the Chiefs are leaving. I don't think the Royals are leaving. We know Kansas City has two professional sports teams, the Chiefs and the Royals. They both share a parking lot. For those of you that don't know that, we know that the football team has obviously had great support over the years, even when they've been terrible. The same thing with the baseball team, who had their glory days here, and in a couple of years they're probably going to get back on the run. We know Kansas City, a lot like a lot of these Midwest teams, they're very devoted to their sports. They're passionate fans. They spend a lot of their hard-earned dollars on tickets, and they support their teams. So I don't think there should be any reason for anybody in Kansas City to worry. I think I agree with you, Josh. This is more of a scare tactic. And I don't see. I know that report came out in the NFL about the Hunt's, refusal to upgrade the locker rooms and things like that in Kansas City, which is not a great look. But at the same time, I don't see the Chiefs as such a blue blood franchise, and specifically them in the National Football League, and then Kansas City, who on the baseball side is actually one of the most famous baseball towns. I don't see either of those two towns leaving their respective sports.
I don't want the Royals to leave because I know they only meet twice a year, but I enjoy it when the Royals play the Cardinals in the interstate series because it's the Battle of Missouri.
Just like here in Ohio, we have Guardians Reds every year.
Yes.
All
and
right.
Also Browns Bengals.
Well, it is time. Unfortunately, if we weren't going to get copyrighted, I would play the March Madness music. But it is the NCAA men's and women's March Madness tournament now both have started. And as you guys know, and I have said this multiple times on championship rings, unfortunately, just because of my nature and my sports schedule and everything that goes on, I don't spend a lot of time on the women's side of things. I'll watch the championship game and I'll be watching Caitlin Clark if I can. But I'm not tuned into the women's side. Obviously, as much as my great partner here, Josh, which as much as Josh and I both admitted that I think we are to work with each other, we both love each other because that's what sports debate is. But with that being said, tonight we're going to dive into the men's, and then I'm going to give Josh the floor, and Josh will go over his predictions for the women's bracket. So, Mr. Unger, in your men's bracket, your final four were?
All right. My final four, I have Iowa State. I've got Iowa State. I've got Kentucky. And for some reason, the rest of my bracket isn't coming up. But I had Iowa State and Kentucky playing each other in the national championship. Oh, I had Iowa State, North Carolina, Kentucky, and Tennessee. And then I had Iowa State, Kentucky, and Iowa State wins the national championship.
So I know you guys aren't going to be able to see this well, but I went old school. This is my bracket. I don't know if you guys can see it. I don't think
not at all. Not at all.
Let's see. Well, maybe if I undo the virtual background here real quick, you guys will just see a blurred screen behind me here. Probably still can't see it, but this is my printed March Madness bracket on a piece of paper. I ended up going old school for this. So, without further ado, my final four, as I also did present this today on Brandon's World, I have the number one seeded UConn representing the East. I agree with Josh. I think North Carolina comes out of the West. I agree with Josh. I think out of the South, Kentucky. And my Midwest pick, who I also think, by the way, is going to win the entire tournament. I like this team. They have good size, good shooting, good depth. They play well together. I have number three seed Creighton coming out of the Midwest. I have Creighton defeating Kentucky in the Final Four. I have North Carolina knocking off UConn. We will not have a back to back national champion. And I have North Carolina falling to Creighton for the national championship game.
We haven't had a back-to-back national champion since the 2007 Florida Gators. And we haven't had a team go to back-to-back national championships since Butler did it in 2010 and 2011.
Yeah, yes. Well, wait. If I recall, didn't Gonzaga go back to the championship game?
No.
Oh, did they get beat in the Final Four?
Okay.
I could have swore. I could have swore they went back to the title game.
2017 they were in the title game. In 2021 they were in the title game.
There was 2020. Was that the team that went undefeated?
2022 it was Virginia, Texas Tech. 2023 it was Connecticut, UConn against San Diego State. 2022 was Virginia. 2022 was Kansas, North Carolina. 2021 was Virginia. 2021 was Baylor, Gonzaga. 2020 was nobody. 2019 was Virginia, Texas Tech. 2018 was Villanova against Michigan. 2017 was Gonzaga, North Carolina. 2016 was Villanova, North Carolina.
Okay, I got you. Okay, we got the gist. So I was wrong on that. I got confused by that. That was the team that went undefeated. For some reason, I thought they went back to back, but that was the team that went undefeated that obviously won the championship game. So the way I see it, I want to talk about this before we get to the women's. I have two upset teams that I think could really do some noise in the tournament. Number one, I have James Madison, and the second team that I really like is McNeese. This team is tough. They're physical. They play great defense. They only lost 3 games all year, 2 of those games being in overtime. I have McNeese and James Madison both getting to at least the Sweet 16.
I have James Madison losing to Wisconsin. And then I did correctly pick Oregon over South Carolina. So I was right there. And
yep,
then
I got Oregon. Now I have them losing to Creighton in the second round.
Yeah, I have Creighton moving on in the second round. But I have Stanford actually upsetting Kansas.
Okay. Who
is
the Cinderella team that you have going the farthest?
McNeese.
Okay, so me and you agree on that. I have McNeese in the Sweet 16 losing to Creighton.
And then I have Purdue beating McNeese.
Okay, so you have Creighton in the Final Four then against Kentucky.
No, I have Creighton losing to Tennessee. And then I have Tennessee over Purdue. And that's how Tennessee gets to the Final Four, where they lose to Kentucky.
So you have Tennessee beating Creighton.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. So then you have Tennessee against McNeese.
Uh, no, because I have Purdue beating McNeese.
Oh, wait, you have Purdue beating McNeese? I don't think Purdue gets past the round of 32. I think they're
Yeah,
going home.
I had Purdue over Grambling, then Purdue beating Utah State, and then Purdue beats McNeese. And that's how we get Tennessee against Purdue.
Okay, I got you. I got you. All right, what about the
So,
women's side?
okay, so for the women's, I have got South Carolina, because they're undefeated, and it looks like nobody can stop them, going against Stanford on one side of the Final Four. And then on the other side, I've got LSU against UConn in the other matchup. And then in the championship game, round 3, South Carolina, LSU for the national championship. And South Carolina finishes the season undefeated as the national champions.
Who do you have as your Cinderella story on the women's side?
I don't really have a Cinderella story because I just feel like all the top seeds are going to kind of hold serve. Because unlike in men's March Madness, I'm not sure if it's also in the round of 32, but all the first round games are at the higher seeds home arena. Well, I shouldn't say it like that. Like South Carolina will get home court, Iowa will get home court, and some of the lower seeds, like this 8-9 game, will be at Iowa's stadium or will be at South Carolina Stadium or things like that. So that's where you could see an upset happen possibly, but I've got most of the home higher seeds holding serve in the women's.
Should we move on to a game last night that I know you want to talk about? Obviously, the Miami Heat defeating the Cleveland Cavaliers, as you see on the screen, 107-104. And I got to say this about this game. So I know you were at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse working the game, but there was a moment, it was about 18 seconds left. The Cavs were down by 3. And I don't want to, take a shot here at Bally Sports necessarily because the game was on CW 43 last night, local cable here in Cleveland. And Brad Doherty, who does a great job with the color commentary of the games, and I would say that. But right before this, Brad Doherty flat out said that he thought, in my opinion, the worst head coach in the history of Cleveland Cavaliers basketball, J.B. Bickerstaff, should be the coach of the year. And then the Cleveland Cavaliers proceed to take what felt like 15 seconds off the clock, down by 3. And instead of shooting a 3, George Niang basically takes a layup, and you go from a chance to tie the game to pretty much losing the game. Another terrible coaching decision by the worst head coach in Cleveland Cavaliers basketball history, J.B. Bickerstaff, and a Cleveland Cavaliers team that has no essential awareness. And signing Marcus Morris Sr., while will bring toughness to the team, it will not change the fact that if they do play Hemi Butler and run one of the playoffs, the Cavaliers will be going home in approximately 5 or 6 games. Mr. Unger, you have the floor.
So there's a reason I wanted to include this game in this tonight's show, and that's because of this. I have no interest in playing the Miami Heat in round 1 or at any point of the NBA playoffs this season. Because it's around this time of year where the Miami Heat start to round into form. Jimmy Butler, I don't know what happens, but he transforms into playoff Jimmy, and he just makes all the big shots. He becomes a cold-blooded killer, and Heat culture just takes over. Both teams came into last night's game banged up. Cavs were without Donovan Mitchell, no Dean Wade, no Max Strus. Miami was without Bam Adebayo, no Duncan Robinson, no Tyler Hero, no Kevin Love, and Jimmy Butler and Terry Rozier, who always seems to have a big game against his hometown Cavaliers, just made the big plays when they needed to. and Eric Spoelstra, I don't get it. Dude just keeps pushing all the right buttons, and Miami won. I do, as a Cavs fan, I don't want to play the Miami Heat in the first round of the playoffs. No, thank you. Jimmy, if I saw Miami across from us, I'd be scared out of my mind. I really would. I don't want to.
Well, to be fair, the Cavs did not have Mitchell last night, or Strus, or Mobley. Now, Miami didn't have Bam Adebayo either, which I think Jared Allen, I think he's slowly becoming the second best player on the Cavs. I think he's grown up a little bit this year. That gives me a little bit more hope for the postseason. But at the same time, like I said, Marcus Morris is a nice piece, but he's not going to be much when it comes to playoff time. I think the Cavs are soft. As I told you, I think they can win a round. I think they can beat Indiana. I think they could beat Orlando. But if they got to play Miami, if they got to play the Knicks, if they got to play Philly with a healthy Joel Embiid, because that's the key there, because if Philly it doesn't have Embiid, the Cavs will beat them. But a healthy Embiid Philly, Miami, or the Knicks, the Cavs will lose, and the Cavs are going to stay the same because the Cavs are going to be in this mediocre territory for the next 5 years where they're going to be a number 4 seed and never get over the hump.
Well, that depends on if Donovan Mitchell re-signs with us.
Yeah, which is very true, and I'm telling you, we just talked about it when it comes to being a general manager. We talked about it with the Justin Fields situation to kick off tonight's show. I am very aggressive when it comes to the way I build my teams. If I'm the Cavs, I think depending on if you go out in the first round this year and depending on how that route goes, you have to explore trading one of Mitchell or Garland. I would rather trade Garland. I would not trade Mobley because I think Mobley and Allen are one hell of a tandem down low, and I think Mobley's only going to get better, and I think Jared Allen has gotten better. But in my opinion, this Cavs team is probably going to need a complete reset. It's been very hard to watch these games towards the end of the regular season because unless we're both wrong, you sort of know what's coming.
Right. And the one frustrating thing for me last night was why was JB Bickerstaff so heavily reliant on the starters? Like, there's a reason you have reserves that come off the bench. I get it. Like, we were without Donovan Mitchell, no Dean Wade, no Evan Mobley, no Max Strus. So you're down.
Your question.
Fair point. But, like, you have Tristan Thompson who can come off the bench. You have Marcus Morris, who you mentioned.
Yeah, but they're not playing 15, 20 minutes off the bench. They may give you like 10 minutes at this point in their career.
Right, but at this late in the season, Darius Garland, Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, Donovan Mitchell, Max Strus, when everybody is healthy, should not be playing 40-plus minutes a game.
No, but they're not healthy, and I agree with you there. And for some reason, as we talked about, when they are healthy, Sam Merrill never gets any playing time, and neither does Porter. And both those kids can play. But last night, they needed all 40 minutes from Garland. They needed all 40 minutes from Jared Allen just to even keep that game close.
You're not wrong, but seriously, as a Cavs fan, I don't want to see Miami in the first round of the playoffs. As of right now, if the playoffs started today, I know they don't, but if they did, we'd be playing the Pacers. I'd be all right with that.
I would be too, because I think that they're a year away like the Cavs were last year. Now, a little bit off topic, but this was a topic that we were going to talk about. But Giannis Antetokounmpo sat out last night's game against Boston.
Yes, you weren't gonna bring this up. I was, because I'm not letting you off the hook for that.
Josh, you gotta listen to me. You gotta listen to me for 1 second.
I'm not letting you off the hook for this.
Listen.
Okay.
So the Milwaukee Bucks right now are fighting basically between the number 2 and the number 3 seed. They don't care who they play in the first round. all they care about is getting to Boston and avoiding them in round two. They'd rather play them in the conference finals. They don't care about home court advantage between them and Cleveland. They feel like they could beat us in a 7-game series if they had to start on the road or what. That's not what they care about. They have veteran players, and plus, they don't want to show Boston everything they got before a potential playoff series, and they're going to feel even more confident now, in my opinion, because Damian Lillard went in there and almost beat the Celtics by themselves. They had to come back down 20 points. Bobby Portis had a great fourth quarter in that game as well. So that's an encouraging sign for me in Milwaukee, and a discouraging sign if you're a Celtics fan, because I think Boston is just cruising through this regular season, and if they're not careful, I think Milwaukee can beat them personally.
I can see that, but yeah, I'm not letting you off the hook for this. No way.
So you're not letting me off the hook for what? I don't understand what I did wrong. You're going to have to articulate here.
Fine. Giannis should have played last night. Unless he was truly, you want to prove you're the best, go out there and against Jason Tatum, against Jaylen Brown on Boston's home court and prove you are the best.
It's March. It's March. I don't have to prove anything. And by the way, we already know Jokic is the best player in the world, so.
Okay, but prove that the gap between yourself and the Celtics is not as large as it appears in the standings. They don't need to
prove anything. I think they proved it more by almost beating them without Giannis last night.
No.
What do you mean, though? They only lost by 3 without their best player.
Did you actually believe Milwaukee was going to win that game now?
Well, yeah, waiting the game, I thought there was a chance. Did you think the Cavs were going to beat the Heat without 4 of their best guys? They had a chance.
I still believed Miami was going to win that game.
Oh, so you thought the whole way through that you had no thought the Cavs were going to win that game?
I would have loved it if the Cavs could win, but my honest opinion was Jimmy Butler is just that dude.
So with 5 minutes ago, when the Cavs were up 4 or 5 points, you didn't say, wow, we have a real chance to win this game.
You're misunderstanding what I'm saying.
I just asked you a simple question. So once again, I win the argument. I have caught you in 3 different traps tonight.
No, you haven't.
Yes, I have. True. I just won the argument.
No, you didn't. I don't know how you're making things up again, dude.
I'm not making things up at all. All I said was a simple question. Did you at any point in the game think the Cavs could beat Miami? And you pretty much just said yes.
I never said they didn't have a chance.
You did.
I never said
Go
that.
back and watch
No, I didn't.
You said, I didn't think the Cavs were going to beat Miami.
That doesn't... When I say that, that doesn't mean they don't have a chance.
I don't think they're going to beat them. Doesn't mean they have a chance. It's the same thing. Yes, it is.
No, it's not. It is not.
Well, Corey, you don't know the definition of the English language because 2 things can mean the same thing.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. So what you said is the same thing I said. This show is going off the rails tonight.
I want to bang my head against the wall sometimes working with you.
Well, people say I remind them of Skip Bayless. Here I am. Coming in with all my tastes that are real. And by the way, most of the time I'm right.
No.
Oh, but really?
We gotta get to some more serious stuff now. I'll let you take the lead on this one.
Oh boy. Okay. So this is all allegedly. So I'm gonna preface this with this. We were going to talk about the fact that the Dodgers and Padres started the MLB season in Korea when they're going to go back to spring training and do all this BS because baseball doesn't know how to market their stars. Anyway, Shohei Ohtani was caught up in a major scandal, as it says here on the screen. And it does seem like that Ohtani could potentially be involved in a betting scandal. There are reports out there that Shohei Ohtani had transferred money from his bank account to his interpreter's bank account. Now, said interpreter has been fired by the Los Angeles Dodgers as a part of this investigation. Basically, what it feels like to me is that Shohei Ohtani or his interpreter were involved in gambling. And as we know, when it comes to gambling, you are not allowed to gamble at a facility, at a team facility. You're not allowed to gamble illegally, on illegal websites, and you're not allowed to gamble on the sport that you were involved in. Even though he's not a player, being around Otani and being, one of his interpreters, basically gambling on the sport of baseball is a no-no, and it would be on Otani. And again, these reports that are really concerning out there, there's multiple stories. There's a story out there that the Otani camp tried to run saying that, Otani was just doing this for a friend. And then there's a story out there that, this was a cover up for a scam. So there's not a ton of details on this. The only thing I'll say on it is this. I believe that in this society of sports gambling, which you guys know, I am a little bit of a gambler myself. Not big gambling, but I do gamble $5 here and there. You obviously have to do it responsibly. Players should absolutely not bet on their own sport because it ruins the
integrity.
competitive nature of the sport. I do believe that it is okay for players and people like to bet on sports outside of their own. So where I see this being a potential problem is obviously it's illegal if they use a bet such as Movada or another quote unquote illegal betting app. But I don't think this will become a big story, until we find out a whether it is for sure Shohei Otani doing the betting. And once we find that out, B, did he bet on baseball specifically? Because if he did not bet on baseball, I don't care. He can bet whatever he wants. But if he did bet on baseball and he did bet this amount of money and did it in a cover up with his interpreter, this is a huge story. And if this is all true, of him potentially betting on baseball, which my guess, if he did do that, he probably bet on the Angels probably losing games due to him being injured, would be my guess right off rip. Otani's career in Major League Baseball, as great of a star as he is, as much as MLB wants to market him, this could be damaging completely for not only Otani, not only for the Dodgers, but Major League Baseball as a whole. I hope I made myself clear on that, and I hope that I didn't leave out any murky details or any suspicion, because I don't want to sound like that I'm accusing Otani of gambling. I'm not. There's just not a ton of facts out there, but I think that there is some of this suspicion out there that makes you think it could potentially be him. And I would be willing to say that I think if he did do it, he probably did bet on baseball. But again, we don't know that for sure.
You know what this kind of sounds like to me? The Pete Rose situation.
Yep.
Do you see the similarities there a little bit?
I do, and the problem is with the social media era, and all that we're in right now, and with the gambling apps and all that, it's a lot more easier to find things and things like that. Again, the concern report from my perspective is that, and this has been reported by multiple sources, Otani reportedly transferred money from his bank account to the now fired interpreter's bank account. Whether that was for the interpreter to use on his own bets or not, we don't know. But in my opinion, and now the fact that they're trying to cover it up by basically saying that the interpreter asked Otani to pay off his gambling debts, that to me seems like a cover up. If I were to bet just let's say $10 and I lost $20 on a bet, I'm not going to come to you and say, "Hey, Josh, can you pay off $20 on my gambling bet?" Even if we are the closest of friends, because I lost a bet. That's just how it is. So that's the part that concerns me, and that's the part where I think this story may have more legs than what is currently being reported right now.
I don't have a lot of thoughts on this because there's so, like you said, there's so many details that we don't know right now. I just don't have a definitive opinion about all of this. All I will say is, in terms of the Pete Rose stuff, no, I don't think he belongs in the Hall of Fame. I think that's my only take on this.
Um, I'll say this. I don't think this is going to be the last betting scandal we have to deal with on this show in the next year or two. I
I
think
agree with you on that. I think it'll come up in other sports
I think
and
it will
other
come with
stars.
other sports. I think other stars. I think that this is the massive gaping hole that has opened up now with gambling being legal. And as we know, always gamble responsibly. Let's move on to the WrestleMania 40 card because Mr. Unger, the card is shaping up.
Yes, it is. And the match that I said was going to happen got confirmed last week thanks to L.A. Knight. Yeah,
Yeah,
I had been saying that it was going to be AJ Styles against LA Knight, and it came true. Jeez, maybe I do know what I'm talking about. What the
you
hell?
think you do when it comes to wrestling. I will give you that.
Um, because I also correctly predicted that it was going to be Swerve Strickland versus Hangman Page versus Samoa Joe at Revolution for the World Championship, and lo and behold, that was the match. 2 for 2. I'll take it. But I can't wait for Jey Uso versus Jimmy Uso. That's going to be a terrific match. I don't think it's going to be a normal match. I feel like it's going to be a street fight or no DQ or something. I would think they would want to put some type of stipulation on it. And I'll tell you what else. I don't think it's going to be a regular referee. I bet you they have Rikishi come in and be the guest referee for this match.
They could. I don't know if he's needed. I'll say that.
Really? Even
Yeah,
with it being Uso versus Uso?
but I want the story to be on them, and I feel like adding Rikishi just puts more spotlight on Rikishi.
Okay, I can see that. But what do you think of the idea of them doing like a no DQ match or a street fight or something? Could you see
I think they
that?
could do it, but I also think it could work very similar to the way Ray and Dom had their match last year, where you don't need it. It's a very personal match. And they've never worked one on one in the ring together, so you could save the no DQ match for a later pay per view down the line.
Okay, that's fair. Um, it just feels like a no DQ match or a street fight would be appropriate given the way the story has kind of been built of like Jimmy constantly screwing over Jay in championship matches, things like that. And
Well, this
the
is
way he
just Jay
pulled.
getting his revenge. I mean, I think Solo Sikoa is going to be involved in it. I think Jay will probably ultimately get the win. You let Jay go over here with the crowd.
Yeah. Um, I if I'm booking WWE, I give Drew McIntyre the title at WrestleMania against Seth. I let Drew have a few successful title defenses, and then who does he drop the World Heavyweight Championship to? Yeet! Jay Uso.
Well, he's driving the world championship to CM Punk at SummerSlam at First Energy Stadium in Cleveland, Ohio, or I think it's called Brown Stadium now again. That's the
Boo!
that's the direction they're going. Your boy, your favorite wrestler of all time, Chick Magnet Punk, will be a world heavyweight champion in WWE once again. I predict come August 3rd, 2020.
Boo!
Uh,
Boo!
I'll say this. There is, I don't think on this current card, which what do we have, 10, 11 matches, something like that. There's not one WrestleMania match that I'm not looking forward to. I do think that one of the matches has had a little bit of a slower build than I expected, and I talked about this a little bit last week on Brandon's World. I think Bailey and Io Sky has lost a little bit of its luster for me just because Io Sky is not a great promo. It's been relying on a lot of attacks and a lot of Bailey doing a lot of the work. I would have rather had a triple threat between Bailey, Dakota, and Io, where Dakota is basically, in between. Where is she going to decide between Bailey and Io instead of slowly or solely relying on Io Sky and joining Damage Control? But I get why they did it this way, so that Bailey has to overcome all the members of Damage Control and all the odds to win the Women's Championship. But outside of that, I think this card's been very well booked. I think both nights are going to have a even amount of action, and I do think one of the matches they announced this past week on SmackDown, Logan Paul, Randy Orton, Kevin Owens, the United States Championship match, I could see very well, like Drew McIntyre, Sheamus, and Gunther did last year, stealing the show.
Do you think we'll get more into predictions in the coming weeks, obviously, but I don't think Logan Paul, if I had to guess, I don't think Logan Paul is going to be champion after WrestleMania.
I tend to agree with you. From where I sit right now, there's a lot of people that think Logan Paul is going to retain. I don't feel that way. I think probably Kevin Owens pins him, and Randy Orton is the one that doesn't take the fall.
Yeah, I like that this is a triple threat because I could easily see Kevin Owens winning the title, but I could also see Randy Orton winning the title. So, and I also see
at this stage. I don't think at this, because what I believe, you know what? I'm not going to spoil it, because if I do spoil it, we're going to go down a whole plot of rabbit holes. But I have a plan for Randy Orton post WrestleMania. I will put it to you that way. Um, I think Gunther, Sami Zayn, as much people wanted Chad Gable, I think Sami Zayn is a good name. And if you didn't have Sami in this match, I don't know where you put Sami on the card. I'm okay with them not giving this moment to Gable, because I think Gunther is going to retain the Intercontinental Championship. I don't think that they are ready to move the belt off Gunther, because a lot like Roman Reigns, I think you need that big name, this sort of new face of the mid card division. As much as I think Gable is, excuse me, is a really good wrestler, and as much as I like Sami Zayn, I don't think they have the pedigree and the resume to take down the ring general, the Intercontinental Champion, Gunther.
What do you think of this six-pack ladder match that they're doing?
So it's very interesting. And again, we'll get into our full predictions on who's going to win the match. But my theory is this is going to be the way WWE is going to split up the Undisputed Tag Team Championships. And I think it's
I agree with you.
Now,
yeah,
on the Raw side, I think Miz and Truth are going to win, which, by the way, can we talk about that camera shot that they did on Raw where they went like 2 straight minutes, where we went from Sami Zayn going all the way to the back to Miz and R-Truth coming out? I thought it was brilliant production. I enjoyed every second of it. I think Miz and Truth are extremely over with the crowd. I think that they're great. I love the fact Awesome Truth is back. I think they win the Raw Tag Team titles. SmackDown Tag Team titles right now, I have no idea.
Yeah, I have no idea with SmackDown either, because we don't even know what SmackDown teams are going to be in it as of right now.
And a lot of people like DIY, and I get it, but I'm sorry. For me, the Creed brothers are just better. I wanted the Creed brothers in this match. I think those two boys, I think Julius specifically, I could see him being a future world champion. And not only that, but I think he could be a star. I think that kid is the future Kurt Angle written all over.
Do you think there's a chance the Street Profits get put into this match, or do you think they're going to be involved in something with Karrion Kross, Bobby Lashley, and
No, I don't. And we talked about this last week. I don't see a spot for Bobby Lashley. I think Lashley is going to be left off the Mania card again. Now, whether it's the Street Profits or
stupid,
whether it's where he's kind of lost in the shuffle. And this is what we've talked about right now. You mentioned the fact that AEW has signed Sasha Banks. They signed Will Ospreay. They've signed all these free agents.
She doesn't go by Sasha Banks. What are you talking about?
Okay, well, Mercedes Moon. She's more known than Sasha Banks. Whatever. She'll be back as Sasha Banks one day. She already admitted she'll be back as Sasha Banks one day. Mercedes Moon. Um,
Monet.
Regardless, AEW has brought in a lot of these free agents, and while a lot of people wanted WWE to bring in some of these guys, what I have said is, and I think that you're seeing it right now in WWE, we talk about a guy like Bobby Lashley. WWE does not need these free agents. They are so loaded and so talented on this roster that there are guys like Bobby Lashley that are not going to make the WrestleMania card again for the second year in a row. And it's because of this incredible talent that WWE has. And you can't name me right now one wrestler, in my opinion, that you would potentially, again, besides the tag team title match, I prefer the Creed brothers over DIY. But in any of these singles matches, you take out one wrestler, and I could argue back that they're in the right position that they're in.
Yeah, first of all, I'm so excited for this AJ Styles versus LA Knight match at WrestleMania. I think that match has a chance to steal the show. Because we know what both of them can do. And I'll tell you this, though. Bobby Lashley got left off the card last year through no fault of his own. Bray Wyatt unfortunately got sick, and so they just had to scrap that whole thing. It feels like at Mania they're gonna do something like Bobby Lashley versus Karrion Kross or something.
I think they may get involved in the ladder match if AOP gets involved and cause the Street Profits, but I don't think it's going to be a regular one-on-one match. They already did it on SmackDown a couple of weeks ago.
But did in a DQ.
Yeah, but you don't run a Mania match back after 2 weeks after it was on SmackDown. I don't recall that ever happening.
And I'm actually surprised they're doing Santos Escobar versus Rey Mysterio next week. I thought that was going to be the Mania match.
Well, that's my because I think maybe you do the 6-man tag at Mania to get some diversity on the card, or maybe it doesn't make Mania at all.
Yeah, I'd be fine with Santos. Are you saying 6-man tag? You're saying Santos and who else?
And Angel and Humberto against Ray, Carlito, and maybe Dragon Lee.
Okay. And then maybe you could do another 6-man tag like Bobby Lashley, Street Profits versus Karrion Kross and AOP.
You could, but I don't know. I don't think you want to have 2 non-tag team title matches, 2 6-man tag. Maybe that's a kickoff show match. Who knows? I
was so sad. Go ahead.
I do think there will be one more edition of the World Heavyweight Championship match. I think that CM Punk will be your special guest referee, your favorite wrestler.
Oh, I hope not.
Punk's coming to Chicago next week. Punk said he's going to be at WrestleMania. The biggest star. He's the one. Him and Cody Rhodes put AEW on the map. You can't deny AEW was at its highest when CM Punk was in the company.
Okay, I can see where you're coming from with that. I definitely can. But for me, AEW is on an absolute roll right now. They've been putting on banger after banger these last 3 Dynamites. I'm personally really enjoying it. The build to Dynasty. Some of the feuds, I'm like, okay, I can get invested in this. Others, I'm like, I don't quite see what we're doing, but I'm willing to give it a chance. Like, we're clearly going to do Swerve Strickland versus Samoa Joe for the AEW World Championship. Yes, please. Thank you. That match is going to be fantastic. Bryan Danielson versus Will Ospreay is already confirmed. So that's going to be a good match. I think we're going to do Toni Storm versus Thunder Rosa. I don't really care about that match just because I don't really like Toni Storm's whole timeless Hollywood actress gimmick. It's not really connecting with me. My guess is they're going to do Mercedes Moné versus Willow Nightingale, kind of tie into that history with Mercedes getting injured against Willow in her last match at New Japan. And other than that, I don't know what other matches there are going to be at Dynasty on April 21st.
New TNT champion, Adam Copeland.
Yes. He made Christian Cage say, I quit.
Indeed, he did. And with that, we are going to go ahead. We're going to wrap up tonight's edition of Championship Rings. Thank you guys for following along. As always, we're live on YouTube, we're live on Twitter, we're live on Facebook. You can follow us on YouTube at Championship Rings 216. Follow us on Twitter at Rings Champion, Instagram Rings Champion, Facebook Rings Champion 216. We are done with our Thursday show starting next Tuesday. We will be back on Tuesday as we've had some scheduling conflicts here in the month of March. So we will be live next Tuesday again, bringing down all things NFL, all things wrestling, all things MLB, all things NBA, whatever you can think of, NCAA tournament. And with that, this has been Championship Rings. Josh, you got the last words for tonight.
Thanks for tuning in. I don't want to play Miami Heat in the playoffs. No, thank you. I don't want to see Jimmy Butler. No.